Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
So today is 11th of November, Thursday. Welcome to watch the Heritage Network news program. So the main content of today's new program is introduce Malacca famous heritage, A Famosa, Christchurch, and Sanford Hill.
So, for the E Famosa in Malay, we call Kota E Famosa, the famous in Portuguese. The older part of the fortress was a five-story keep which gave names to the fortress as a whole. Sometime following the Battle of Malacca 1641 and the occupation of the city by the Dutch, the keep was destroyed but the outer walls of the fortress were reinforced. However, in 1807, the British destroyed most of the fortress. The Porta Santiago Gateway and the restaurant Middelburg Bastion are the only part for the fortress that remain today. They are among the oldest European architecture remains in Southeast Asia and the Far East. And for the next heritage is Christ Church Malacca.
Christchurch, Malacca is an 18th century elegant church in the city of Malacca. Malaysia is the oldest functional Protestant church in Malaysia, is with the jurisdictions of the Lower Central Academy of the Elegant Draught of the West Malaysia. So the Dutch conquest of the Malacca of the Portuguese empires in 1641, the proscriptions of the Roman Catholicism and the conversions of the exciting church to Dutch Reform use. The old Sanford Hill Church at the summit of the Sanford Hill was renamed the Bovenkirk, we call it Upper Church, and used as the main parish church of the Dutch community. So in 1741 century, in commemorations of the centenary of capture Malacca for the Portuguese, the Dutch Worker Committee decided to build a new church to replace the engaged Bovenkirk. The foundation stone was laid by Malacca-born captains of Malacca Wilhurst Abraham Devine on behalf of his father, Claes Devine, a prominent Wilhurst who had been the second deputy governor of Malacca. The church was complete in 12 years later in 1753 century and replaced the Roman church as the primary Dutch Reformed church in the Dutch Malacca. With the singing of the Anglo-Dutch Treaty on 1824, processions of Malacca was transformed to the British East India Company and in 1880 38th century, the church was reconciled with the Rite of the Church of England by Daniel Wilson, Bishop of Kalola, and renamed to be Christ Church. So the maintenance of the church was taken over by the government and on the street settlement in 1858 century. So originally painted white, the church and the naval stairway built was painted red in 1911, and this distinctive color since has remained the hallmark of Malacca Dutch era building since. So as for the subway, it's a heritage structures in the heart of Malacca city, the administrative capital of the state of Malacca. Malaysia, in place known as the Red Square, the stairway is now for its red exterior and nearby the red clock tower. It was built by the Dutch in 1650 century as the office of the Dutch governor and the deputy governor. When Malacca was handed over to the British in the 19th century, the Malacca Free School was opened in the vicinity of the Sandway on 7 December 1826 century by missionary residing in the stage in response to a later date 19 April 1825. designed by Humphrey Weaver and the Mountbatten, which called from establishment of English language education in Malacca. So in Formosa, we can see that they will have a Malacca cycle shop, tree shop. So it could say by incredible the cycle rickshaw as a means of public transport are facing extinctions in Asia. In Malacca back in the early 19th century, cycle rickshaw was still used as poor man taxi and they were charming, unhurried way to get around the town center, which those days had far less traffic. From a tree shore, you could get a close-up view of the tree and ask the driver to pull over anytime something interesting that catch your eyes. Nowadays, the few remaining tree shore in Malacca are elaborately decorated with artificial flowers and filtered with a boom box under the seat playing music. They really stray far from the main square in front of Malacca, Oldish, Era Stanway and Christchurch. The three-shore drive free to the coach load of tourists and no doubt change a good sum for a quick spin round the block or the post for a photo. They have to make a living somehow. There is not much money to make those days for operating three-shore as licensee cab. So, in addition of the horse carriage, having your own tourist guide to take you to visit the village, river embankment, oil pump, rubber, and so on. So tourists can also experience a horse-drawn carriage tour of the village. Horse-drawn carriages are widely used in Singapore and Malaysia, especially where the economy is booming because they need horse-drawn carriage to transport goods. So one upon a time, it was very popular and common in places such as Penang, Malacca, and Kuala Lumpur. Horse racing also using a horse. So as for the last heritage, it will be Saint Paul Hill.
Okay, so for the Sample Hill, as history would have it, the hill came to be known as Malacca Hill when the Kingdom of Malacca was founded by Parameswara. He established the hill and surrounding areas as the administrative center of the kingdom, and it remained down the line during successive regimes. And in the era of the Malacca Malay Sultanate, and places, a mosque, and residence for the noblemen were built around the hill. So when the Portuguese invaded Malacca in 1511, the places, mosques, and other buildings were destroyed. The Portuguese built the Fort Formosa around the hill using laterite stones from nearby islands. A church known as the Our Lady of the Hill was built by a Portuguese captain, Duarte Correia Chica, 1520. Francis Xavier often visit Malacca from 1545 to 1552 for the purpose of propagating Christianity in the region, whereby he stayed at this church. He died on the island of Ascension in 1552 while on his way to China, and his body was temporarily interred at the burial vault of this church of 9 months before it was finally shipped into India. When the Dutch reconcentrated as Saint Paul's Church and continued to serve as a place of worship. But from a Catholic church, it became a Protestant church following the religion of the Dutch. During the Dutch era, it was also used a burial site for their nobility. Upon the completion of their new church, the Church of Christ in 1753, And under the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824, Hulu was ceded to the Netherlands and Malacca to the British. The British has built a high flagpole on the hill to fly to the Union Jack, and since that it came to be called Bukit Bendera. In English, we call Flag Hill, and a lighthouse was built for the purpose of monitoring incoming vessels and threats. And Francis Xavier's statue was erected in honor of his Christian missionary work in Malacca. During the British rules, the church fell into disuse as they favored the nearby Christ Church. Nonetheless, St. Paul Church still served as a burial place for their dignitaries. After Malaya independence from Britain in 1957, the hill continued to host the administrative centre of Malacca state government, and the ruins of St. Paul's Church, which is above 20 feet high, still remain, though much of its original structure has collapsed. Recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, it is a popular tourist attraction and better known as St. Paul Hills, on whose top stand the ruins of St. Paul's Church, and it was named by the Dutch hundreds of years ago. Okay, so that's all for the Heritage of Malacca news for today. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.